Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. This is a podcast for women who are ready to ditch diets, ditch the scale, and food guilt forever, and instead invite peace with food, body trust, and confidence in all of your choices. This show will shed some light on sneaky ways diet culture has infiltrated your thoughts, your family, and your well-being. I believe that no matter the episode, you'll walk away feeling informed, inspired, and encouraged. I'm your host, Jennifer D'Amato. I'm a certified intuitive eating counselor, coach, a mom of 4 daughters, a lover of all things pink, and I can't wait to dive into each and every episode with you. Let's dive in now. Hey ladies, it's episode 147, and I have something really special for you on this episode today. You might know I'm doing all the things right now with my oldest daughter, driving across half the state of Texas to take her to college. Big transitions over here. So instead of a normal episode, I'm actually giving you an amazing opportunity to hear one of my free live trainings that I do in my private community. This community is held on Facebook. It's completely free to you. It's for women who are pursuing intuitive eating. If you have not joined us, head into the show notes wherever you're listening, because I think you're going to love what you hear in this live training, which I host once a month. You're going to probably want to go in, join, and catch all of the replays that are sitting there in the events tab. So head into the show notes after you listen to this episode, or you can pause right now, head in there, request to join. Even while I'm on the road, I can let you in and would be so happy to do so. Because it's a training, you'll hear me respond to comments from members of our community during the episode. All right, this was our August free live training, When Intuitive Eating Isn't Working. Let's dive in. Let's dive into this training when intuitive eating isn't working. Hey, hi Tiffany. So glad that you are here and joining live. All right, so first let's take a look at how you define working. So if you say, intuitive eating just isn't working for me, and I can tell you based on Google searches, as a lot of people saying, well, I don't think it works. I don't think it works. So first we're going to look at how you define working, and then I want to talk about some possible obstacles that might be getting in the way of you feeling successful with intuitive eating. So there we go, 2 things. So you might feel like intuitive eating is not working if your idea of intuitive eating working, that's my air quotes for you, right? Working, is directly tied to your weight. This is actually most often what I hear, what I saw as I was diving into this topic of it not working. So when people implement intuitive eating, 4 things are possible when it comes to your weight. Let me just be really clear. 4 things are possible when it comes to your weight. So your weight can stay the same, no changes whatsoever. You can notice you lose weight if prior to intuitive eating, you were overeating and paying very little attention to hunger, fullness cues, satisfaction. So it's possible you could lose weight. It's possible you could gain weight. Now, if you've been artificially holding your body at this lower weight through restriction, through dieting, limiting certain foods, limiting food groups, all of that, it's possible you could gain weight because you've allowed those foods in. The 4th thing that's possible is you could notice you've gained weight initially, and as you're learning to allow all foods, you're not restricting, and then you start making peace with food. Things start settling down. You start trusting your body. You might notice that your body kind of settles down into its preferred weight set point. Now, we don't talk a lot about weight because, again, all of those things are possible. And that's really missing the mark of intuitive eating. So if your desire to lose or control, I want you to get that part. if your desire to lose or control your weight is still dictating your choices, then intuitive eating will feel like it's not working because it's not intuitive eating. Take a moment with that. Think about that, how that relates to you. If you've ever found yourself saying, I don't feel like intuitive eating is working for me, or I've been on this journey and maybe this isn't working, do you still hold that desire to lose weight? Are you trying to control your weight, trying to make sure nothing changes at all? It's not intuitive eating, and it will feel like intuitive eating is not working. Let's talk about some obstacles, though, that might be getting in the way of you feeling successful with intuitive eating. Because I think we can have those ebb and flows, right? Where things feel easier. Sometimes they feel like a struggle, they get hard or challenging or unknown. And it is a real possibility there are obstacles. And I want to share 5, and there could be more, but I'm going to share 5 here that are the most common ones. And I have some ideas woven in to help solve those. So if you are a note taker, this is an awesome place to kind of jot down, not necessarily what I'm saying, the obstacle, but how does it relate to you? What kind of things do you notice on your own journey? Maybe they're obstacles you've experienced and overcome. Isn't that fun to see that progress? Maybe they're obstacles you're currently in and you have some definition to them and you need something to do to overcome the obstacle. Maybe they're ones that you haven't had to deal with at all. They're not obstacles you've approached, but you like to have that kind of proactive thing like, ooh, if this happens, if I notice this, now I'm prepared. Okay, so the first obstacle is if you have turned the 10 principles of intuitive eating into rules. This was me. I'm raising my hand. This was me guilty. I turned the 10 intuitive eating principles into rules before I understood intuitive eating, while I was still deeply immersed in my disordered eating. I think it's human nature to turn things black and white, right? Like there's a right way and there's a wrong way to do things. That applies in a lot of areas in our life. And I think we do this with eating. There's comfort sometimes in knowing that there's clear rules that lead to a definitive outcome. But eating is complex. It's nuanced. It's personal. And the thing is, intuitive eating acknowledges all of that. There is no right or wrong way to practice intuitive eating. That was actually just a comment I saw here in the group recently, that there's no right or wrong way. Tiffany's saying, yeah, I did that at first too. Remind myself there aren't rules. Yeah. And I think we get so used to rules, especially if we've been immersed in diet culture, which is full of rules, right? So there's no right or wrong way to practice intuitive eating. The principles are simply guidelines. And maybe for you even use the word guideline. Maybe the word principle feels a little too close to rule and you want to just swap it out for the word guideline. They're guidelines, not rules. And some of the guidelines may not fit you, may not be appropriate for you. So what do you do with all of that? I suggest, as best you can, let go of your expectations. Knowing that intuitive eating is a journey without this final destination, this pinpoint on a map, that can be really helpful. And just because, maybe you're having a hard day, maybe you're having a hard week, month, or longer, it doesn't mean that you're failing. If I know if there's some clients in here, people I've talked to, people I've met with, failing doesn't exist with intuitive eating. In my practice, we establish that right from the get-go. There is no pass fail. Have self-compassion. Find support. And here's the thing, and I've already mentioned this kind of once here, is acknowledge how far you've already come. I think even just acknowledging you've walked away from diet culture, dieting, the weight loss industry is holla, that's huge. That's so huge. That was our first obstacle. All right, number 2. Another obstacle is that you're calling it intuitive eating, but really you're restricting. So what I notice is a lot of people embark on their intuitive eating journey and still end up restricting. Let me share with you like how this might play out. You might tell yourself like I'm eating intuitively, but you actually don't allow yourself to have the food that's really satisfying. For instance, you go out to eat and you really want the burger or you want that juicy steak, but you order the salad. Maybe you avoid dessert. You limit your carbs. You're still chasing a thinner body, labeling food as good and bad. That's not intuitive eating. And I want to say, I think it's important here, and I'm going to address this at another time in more depth, but even the idea of eating mindfully alone, that concept isn't intuitive eating. Mindful eating comes into intuitive eating, but just eating mindfully, it's not intuitive eating. So intuitive eating can't work if you're holding on to any kind of diet beliefs, restrictive mindset, the shoulds and shouldn'ts, or you're truly not trying, like you really haven't tried to heal your relationship with food. If you have any diet culture at play, intuitive eating is going to feel like it's failing you. I believe you have to be all in. So this is why you'll hear me suggest starting with principle 1, reject the diet mentality. And if you've been around here for a while, you've probably heard me say this. Use that as a check along the way. You notice those thoughts creeping in. You notice something doesn't feel right. Maybe you're even starting to question, is intuitive eating working for me? Go back to principle 1, reject the diet mentality. If you want to and you haven't yet, you can listen to the fundamentals of that principle on episode 134 of the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast. All right, you ready for obstacle number 3? All right. Another obstacle can be not planning ahead for when you are hungry. So you can find yourself still feeling overwhelmed with hunger at the end of the day and find it difficult to feel full or satisfied if you have put off or ignored your hunger signals throughout the day. What if you try viewing honoring hunger as a form of self-care? I can still remember almost every moment I've ever shared with a client this idea of honoring your hunger is a form of self-care. It is a shift in your thoughts that can be a complete game changer. If you can shift that thought and view honoring your hunger as a form of self-care, it's possible that even the shopping, I would even say making the list, thinking what foods do I need, right? Maybe it's some sort of meal planning, for a day or 2 or 4, whatever that is, preparing those foods, packing food for work if you need that. If you see this as self-care, you can even view all these activities that surround it as daily and weekly self-care. That can be the game changer you've been looking for. Not eating enough throughout the day, I struggle with that when I have a fibromyalgia flare. Yeah, and so we can even acknowledge that on days when other parts of our health, our overall well-being take over. And I usually say, if stress is high, which if you're having a flare, if you're not feeling well, and that stress is high, sometimes we have to address the stress or our body's response to the stress or the flare going on before we can address that. So I will direct you definitely to practical hunger. Can you get something in? Can you have something and maybe have something that has a fat or protein in it just so you stay full and satisfied a little bit longer, because you might not want to eat as much when you're stressed or when you're having a flare and not feeling well. Remember, honoring your hunger, it's going to build trust with your body, and body trust is a big part of intuitive eating. All right. Fourth obstacle. The fourth obstacle is that you might not have enough tools and strategies for emotional eating. So if emotional eating, and emotional eating of any kind, I mean, that's anywhere from, being frustrated to being sad to being bored. So if emotional eating of any kind has been a big part of your coping method, for a long time, it's most likely become automatic. It's become default mode for you. So having specific tools and strategies that work for you, they need to work for you, is key in feeling successful with intuitive eating. Now, I want to make sure I have a little side note to this obstacle of emotional eating, is that if you find yourself still judging yourself or beating yourself up for emotionally eating, that would be a good place where you can start to remove an obstacle. Seeing emotional eating from a place of self-compassion and as one of many tools and strategies that you have is part of the healing journey that intuitive eating invites. I mean, you're going to emotionally eat at times. Not judging that is a huge removing of an obstacle. I like this. Keeping things easily available to grab so you don't have to even cook. Yes. And again, if we look at that where you've already planned that in the house and that is self-care. I mean, how good does that feel? Having that, like I'm taking care of me. I'm taking care of me. I mean, bubble baths and massages and all of that and facials, oh my goodness, all the things are wonderful. But also having easy, ready-made foods is a beautiful, wonderful form of self-care. I love that. I love that. Okay, we have one more obstacle to get to. One more. The fifth and final obstacle, and again, you might notice there's others. And if there's others, shoot them in the comments, message me, let me know, like, this is the obstacle I'm finding. I'm hitting on 5, kind of the most common I hear. The fifth and final obstacle is that you actually don't have support. Now that might seem like, well, I'm here. Yes. And I know we're hearing this. I just saw another post in this group of so grateful to have support. Intuitive eating is a process with ups and downs. It can at times be incredibly challenging, especially if you live in a culture that praises weight loss and diets. And yes, we have a bigger culture that does that. We know that. But even if we take that more personal, you may be surrounded by friends, coworkers, family, loved ones who are still hopping on the next diet trend or talking negatively about their weight loss, and their body. Yeah, especially another comment, especially when others around you are always dieting. Yes, it's there, right? It's all over social media. It's also in our grocery store aisles. It's in the lunchroom at work. It's at family gatherings. It's woven into conversations throughout the day. And like Tiffany shared in the comments, especially when others around you are always dieting. I believe that without support of some kind, it can feel confusing, it can feel isolating, and that's like the opposite of the intuitive eating community. It's important to find support on your intuitive eating journey, and there's so many different options for support. So I have a few things I want to share about that. Following intuitive eating social media accounts can be a great starting point. I'm going to tell you, I think you should be picky. I think you should make sure they're not promoting weight loss, tracking of any kind, before and after photos. I just had someone share that with me because they were, kind of grilling me, which I want people to ask all the questions, because she had talked to somebody who said, I'm intuitive eating. And then she went and looked at her on social media and she's like, but you are focused on before and after and weight loss. That's not intuitive eating. And she knew it. So be picky, but increase your feed with social media accounts, body positive, body neutral, all sizes, like that's something that can be really helpful and feel supportive. Another option for support is a group like this one. I believe knowing just that there's other women out there who are healing their relationship with food and their body can give you like a sense of relief. Like, I'm not doing this alone. There's other people who have said, screw you to diet culture. I've heard from many women in this community so happy to not walk this journey alone, to know they have a place they can share their wins, their struggles, ask questions, get answers, have things like this, of course, where we can have a specific training. I show up for office hours and you can have that level of support. You might want an even deeper level of support to heal your relationship with food and body. And you might want someone who knows the tools and strategies that can help make the journey not only easier, but even more enjoyable. I'm going to say right now, if you're finding it not to be enjoyable at all, this might be the best option for you. If you're finding that it's a constant struggle, like you feel like it is every day rolling that ball up the hill, this might be the best option. Working with an intuitive eating counselor can provide structure, guidance, and personalized support. So personally, I offer that a couple ways. You've heard me talk about that. I offer private coaching, and a couple of times a year, I offer group coaching. And if that's something you desire, I want to let you know you can contact me. You can send me a message via DM. You can head to my website. You can book a call. You can put it in the comments like, hey, I think I need another level of support. I want to go deeper. I want to make it enjoyable. I want this to be an enjoyable, actually fun experience and feel uplifted and encouraged. Now, I again, a little asterisk here. If you are currently struggling with an eating disorder or suspect you might have one, this is a great place for support, but I recommend you find a therapist who can work with you through your healing journey. You'll actually see in my application process, I don't work with women who have an active eating disorder who are not in a therapeutic setting. So I just want to make sure that that's really clear. And if you can't find someone, please let me know, and I will make sure to hook you up with someone I know who fits that mold. All right, so we went over why you think intuitive eating isn't working. Well, we found out it actually probably is working unless you're focused on your weight and weight loss, or you're trying to control your weight. I really think that's a key one, because sometimes, I'm not focused on losing weight, but you're really trying to keep it so it doesn't change it. Also, you're doing things to make sure that that happens. We went over 5 obstacles that could be getting in your way when it comes to intuitive eating. I hope those were helpful, gave you some ideas. If you have other questions, if you have other thoughts on these, if you have other obstacles, don't hesitate to reach out. If you're catching the replay, shoot those right here in the comments. I'll get to those later tonight or tomorrow when you catch the replay. And don't worry, this will be sitting here, well, for eternity, which is so great. And like I said, y'all, this gets to be part of a podcast episode, which I'm super excited to share, because I know that this can be really valuable for other women and that there's other women looking for support. If you happen to know someone, you're like, we've been talking about this and she's just really struggling, invite her into the group as well. See if she wants to kind of be part of something that is healing and encouraging. I am so grateful for you. I hope this was helpful. Shoot me in the comments. Well, that is the weirdest thing I've ever said. Shoot me a line in the comments. Let me know if this training was helpful. And it helps me just kind of know we're on the right track. If there's something that you're looking for September's training, our free training here, please let me know as well. I want to make sure I fit these topics in that are on your heart, things you're struggling with, things you want help and support with. All right. Thanks for coming, ladies. Look forward to seeing you again soon.